actually, extortion was never really an issue in my case. It happens. I heard it from other people, especially in Kazakhstan and stuff like that. But again, I think my car is a great diplomat because these old BMWs, they see the car, they're happy. Because, it's also the generation of cars who were new when the Soviet Union fell apart. So back in the early 90s, like the guys that made some money, they tried to get exactly this car. So it's almost a bit part of like the national heritage to some extent.
Emanuel, man, thank you so much for meeting me in your E34 for this podcast.
Thanks so much for the invitation, Kris.
I surfed around on your Instagram and I've kind of, looked at the summary you sent over to me, and I've followed your whole journey on social, which was really fantastic. And there's one thing that I think that I really want to ask you, because this is something I'm always wondering too, is why do you think people think they need a 6-figure truck that's lifted 30 inches, 40 inches off the ground with enormous tires to do what you did in a 30-year-old low displacement 6-cylinder BMW? Why do you think that is that people feel like they need that?
Yeah, it's a very good question, but I think it's part of human nature. We think more is better by default. So people just get more and more, and they forget that less is more sometimes. And that's, I think, the thing. I mean, I meet all these huge UFOs driving around the world, weighing 10, 12, 15 tons, having 4 to 6 wheels. And they've got different problems than me, right? I mean, they have to decide which road to take, which road will actually carry that truck. If they get stuck, nobody will pull them out. So yeah, I mean, more is more, but more is not necessarily better here, I think. And that's basically what I try to prove also a bit with this tour, that, you can just take the old trusty car that stands in front of your house that I own it for a while already, and you can do amazing stuff with it. And now I'm already beginning with basically the conclusion of the entire journey, but this is freedom, You don't save money for your entire life, sell your flat, buy a truck for, $800,000, go into a trip and have maybe very high, expectations of everything. I don't know if that's freedom. I think the freedom is rather you take your car, which you have anyway, and you have an amazing time with it. And if something happens, you fix it. I mean, it's a simple old car,
Yeah, I think the American way of saying it is run what you brung. It's kind of like showing up to the racetrack and you run the car that you have. That's what you use, and that's the way it goes. Yeah, it's interesting that you're able to take a car and do what you did. I think most people would assume that it's irresponsible or dangerous, or you're guaranteed to break down. You'll never get out alive. How did you have any fear of that going in, that you wouldn't be able to make it and that the car wouldn't make it, or did you have a lot of confidence?
Well, yeah, I mean, from the beginning, it was always a bit the question, okay, let's see how far we'll make it. I never promised myself, I never promised anybody I will definitely make it all the way up to Tajikistan, onto the Pamir Highway, on almost 5,000 meters over sea level. I knew it's a test. I didn't know what the outcome will be. I guess it makes adventure also adventurous and worthwhile. But yeah, I couldn't guarantee it beforehand. And of course, it's a risk taking a car that's not made for these things. And I have to say, like, in retrospect, it worked just absolutely fine. But I didn't know that in the beginning. So it's something, of course, you have to keep in mind when you go on such a journey. I mean, also the reaction of the people along the way. They were looking at me like, how the hell did you end up here? I mean, it's absolutely like, this car just didn't fit in the surrounding. And that kind of also, makes it everything even more fun. If you have something that fits into the surrounding, it's less interesting. Something is missing. And then if you take this old BMW sedan, which was made for the German highway or German country roads, and drive it somewhere through the world where, well, it doesn't really belong, it's fun. It's absolutely great. You can also see it in the look of people's faces. That they also enjoy seeing these old cars driving around the planet.
Well, tell me about this car. What is this thing? Where did you get it? How did you find it? And how did you decide this was going to be the car you were going to take?
Yeah, so this car I bought about 7 years ago. It's actually my first car. I didn't have a car for quite a while. I used to travel a lot on my bicycle. And yeah, 7 years ago, I bought this car for 650 euros. So not exactly a lot of money. It was not in a really good condition. It was standing for over 10 years in a garage. I spent an entire summer fixing it myself. And no, I'm not a mechanic. I take a lot of time to do it because, it's not my profession. And since 7 years, the car, which is Theodore, I'll refer to him as Theodore from now on, actually became a family member. And that's, I think, also something which is quite important, that, you have a car that you can trust, that like buying a car and just setting off directly, yeah, might not be the best idea because you don't know which problems might occur. You don't know what
It's
has
like
been
getting
the
meeting a
last
girl and
years.
getting married in like a week,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You got
Exactly,
to give it
absolutely.
some
Yeah,
time, right? You got to get to know her
yeah,
a little bit. You don't want to make a mistake.
exactly. Know where the problems might be. Already get through all these problems, fix some stuff that might break, and not exactly venture into the big adventure directly at the beginning. That's a that's a good metaphor. Exactly. Yeah, and why is this car? I mean, it's I had another car. It was a SUV, 4x4, differential locks, a lot of stuff that can break, air suspension, and I decided, nope, I'm not taking this car. I'm taking the old simple car. Okay, I lifted
Hold on.
Theodore
All
up
that
a
stuff
bit.
that you just mentioned is designed specifically to do what you went to do, though, right? The air suspension, the locking differentials. Sounds like a G Wagon or a Land Rover or something like that. Those things are made to do what you did.
Yeah, yeah, they're made to do that, but I don't trust them. It was also not a new car. It was from 2008, the other one. And there's so much more that can break. And I'm sure that if I would have done these 33,000 kilometers in the last half year it was a Porsche Cayenne GTS, that would have had many,
Mhm.
many problems that I didn't have on this journey with my old sturdy BMW.
Right. So, what inspired this trip? What was was there a moment that you thought I need to go do this? Was it the destination of the Pamir Highway? Like, why did you decide to venture out on this journey?
Yeah, it actually goes back quite far. 11 years ago, I cycled the Pamir Highway. Um, it was a quite long tour starting in Turkey, going free around Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan to Kyrgyzstan back then. It was still, I was studying back then, so I had quite a lot of time in my semester break to go on big adventures. And the Pamir Highway, I have to say, on the bicycle was a place that I kind of hated me for going to because it was very tough. It was very cold. I was there in September 2014. It was very, very, very tough to just survive, basically. And I thought I would never get back there. I was really at the edge of my power. I was cold for days on end. And that was one of those experiences that are really awesome in retrospect. In the moment, it's a bit too much. But then if you think back on this experience, you're like, damn, that was beautiful up there. And damn, I mean, being so close to the edge of not managing something and fighting a way through, that's quite a special feeling. So some of the dream came up to get back up there, face again, the elements, the altitude, the cold, the burning sun. And yeah, I mean, cycling once is okay. I don't think cycling a second time would be quite the same thing. So I decided, hey, actually, doing this with a car is on its own way maybe an even bigger challenge because, a bike is quite overseeable. What can go wrong? But the car is a bit more complex, even an old BMW. So it sounded like quite a challenge. And the spring I quit my job and I decided, hey, if I don't do it now, I'll never do it. So it was actually quite spontaneous. I mean, I think the planning of this trip took about 6 weeks or so. From the first idea, that'd be kind of awesome, but realized, nah, it might be a bit too crazy until saying, hey, I'll give it a try. Let's go.
So, how much of it was planned versus improvised?
Yeah, so my general direction was the Pamir Highway in Tajikistan, which was also almost the easternmost point of my tour. The route there is kind of predefined because, I mean, first you drive through Eastern Europe, for the Balkan countries, cross Turkey. After that, theoretically, one could pass through Iran and Turkmenistan, but the visa situation is basically not possible right now. So the only alternative was going through Russia after I passed crossing Georgia because Azerbaijan has closed borders. So the route there was actually kind of predefined by politics and geography and oceans in the way, or seas. Um, yeah, after that, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan to Tajikistan, well, that were countries I wanted to see again. It's basically, I think, a part of the world that's also a bit under the radar. Many people don't really are aware that it's a very beautiful place up there. Um, and then I knew that I'd probably go back through Russia because I didn't want to cross so many borders on the way back. And I still wanted to see the Altai Mountains, so I ended up still driving a bit further northeast towards the Mongolian border. But that was also a bit along the way. I mean, it also depended a bit how's the car holding up, how I am holding up, how's the time schedule getting along. So I had this vague destination, Pamir Highway, which I think was also the right approach because if you're on a tour, which was in the end like almost 30,000 kilometers, you cannot plan everything. I mean, I could have written a book with all the steps that I want to do, and it just doesn't make sense. So I think it's quite good to have a general destination, but then plan along the way, which also takes time. Um, but that's the only way how you can tackle that without completely losing yourself in detail, and then maybe just running behind your plan, which is also not really fun.
Yeah, it can stress you out. If you have too much of a plan and it doesn't go to plan, then you're. I think it's good to prepare to not have a plan, and
Exactly.
be able to encounter the unknown in a confident way. If you give yourself too much of a plan, you'll be in trouble. Because you'll break the plan and it'll stress you out.
Exactly. I mean, the only thing you actually need is time. Because if you have the plan not to have a plan, you of course need a bit of extra time in case, something comes up. And then it's quite good and you can roll.
What was the thought of all of your friends and family and stuff like this before you left on this journey and hopped to be part of that? Did they think you were crazy, or you may have to roll up your window? It's pretty loud.
I'll close it again. Here we go. Yeah, I think they were a bit. Nah, actually, they're used to it for me. I mean, I was always doing interesting trips that was a bit different magnitude now with a car as well. But I've always traveled a lot. I've enjoyed the luxury to be able to travel a lot all my life already.
There goes Emanuel again. He's off on another adventure.
Exactly, something like that. Like, okay, this time with a car. Okay, well, he'll make it somehow. So I think they have faith. Even my parents, I mean, they're pretty relaxed and all that. I think they know that they can trust my intuition and my also, experience with traveling, so that I won't get myself into stupid situations. So it was quite fine, I think. Like the reception there, nobody was too surprised, and everybody was quite supportive.
What was the contrast? I mean, obviously you saw the Pamir Highway, which was like that's kind of like the crown for you. Like you wanted to be there, you wanted to see that and do that. What was the difference between what you imagined and what it actually was when you saw it for the first time when you were on that bike? Like, what was that contrast? Did it fulfill you in the way that you thought it would?
Yeah, I mean, the first time I was there in 2014, I would say it wasn't that popular. So there was also not so much information about this region. And I think the Pamir Highway is something. I mean, let's go a few steps back. Basically, the Pamir Highway is part of the old Silk Road. So it's a very, very old trading route, which goes over the Pamir Mountains.
It's been used for thousands of years. Thousands of
Exactly.
years people have been using this route.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, just the outskirts of the Himalayas. So, yeah, it's pretty high. And highway is also quite a funny name for that, because if you think about a highway, you think tarmac, 2 lanes, 4 lanes, beautiful open roads. But there, like, if you're lucky, there might be a little bit of tarmac in between, which is mostly even more bumpy than all the other bumpy tracks that you have most of the time. It's a lot of just gravel road or stones, winding through the mountains, often single track. It basically goes along the Afghan border. There's only a river separating you from Afghanistan. Then really goes high up to 4,655 meters. I'm not quite sure how much that is in feet, but it is really high. Until reaching basically the Chinese border and going along the Chinese border for a while. And the beautiful thing there is, it's on high altitude for a long time. So on the bike, I actually spent a week on over 4,000 meters or around 4,000 meters, it is quite a challenge because, you get out of breath quickly. You do notice that the oxygen level is low. And that was not only a challenge on the bike, but also for the car, because not only humans run out of breath up there, but also engines. I noticed at some point that I think I had maybe 40% less power than normally, just because you don't have the right mix of oxygen and fuel. Huh? I mean, at least Theodora, my BMW, is modern enough to have a bit of electronics to still adjust something, but at some point there wasn't a lot of power left. So to answer your question, the difference between expectation and what I saw there, I think the first time I was there, I didn't have so many expectations because, it was a bit a ride into the unknown. I knew it would be something crazy. And I also don't like to look at the stuff before going there in too much detail, because it's kind of nice to, leave some space for surprise and for this real, first impression without having looked at everything on Google Street View, which doesn't exist there. But I mean, I guess you get the idea. And now the second time with the car, it was a whole different experience. The weather was not so cold, which made it a bit more relaxed, to be honest. But I was actually surprised how bad the road was. I didn't really notice that with a bike, because with a bike you can always go a bit around all the potholes and stones and boulders and whatever, but with a car you just have to go over it, right? So it was a challenge, yeah.
What broke first? Obviously things broke. I mean, that's inevitable. It's entropic when you use something, that is going to degrade. Something's going to break, something's going to happen. Anytime you use something, that's going to happen. So what broke first? What was the inevitable?
Yeah, the first thing was a light bulb in the back. And that was the only thing that broke from a rear light for the first, I think, 17,000 kilometers. So that's kind of hard to imagine, I know. People are making fun of me because, some people think old BMWs break down all the time, but that's rather something about the owners than about the cars. And the first real breakdown was in Tajikistan, of course, on the Pamir Highway, the absolute end of the world. You have to imagine, the next bigger town, or the next city, that's not like 5 hours away. It's not 10 hours away. It's not 2 days away. It's like 3-4 days away of ride because the road is so bad you're crawling along. So up there, my radiator exploded. Which was a bit my fault because the radiator was, same age as the car. 46 years old. I should have changed it before setting off, I guess.
And you stopped over at the dealer and got a new one, yeah?
Exactly. Just, rang up BMW. No, I didn't. That's not an option there, unfortunately. So, yeah, I mean, the solution there was, the radiator consists of many different lines that, lead the coolant fluid for the radiator. I cut the one in question that was broken and managed to seal the ends. So I just had one line less going for the radiator.
Did you just fold it over, or how did you?
I folded it over with some pliers, squeezed it really tight. I mean, it's aluminium, so it's quite bendable. And then I still sealed it with some 2-component glue. And it worked, luckily. It was, So
did you have to rely on others a lot too, like other people on the side of the road, or like in these small villages? Did you get some help along the way?
There's not a lot of help. So in the terms of radiator, I was lucky that it happened close to Murgab, which is like a settlement in the Pamir Mountains, one of the bigger ones. So I had to roll back about 40 kilometers to the town because I thought, like, before I fix it in the end of the world, I'll go somewhere where I can at least buy some new antifreeze. And there's some guy who was also driving trucks once in a while, was also hanging out, and he found some glue, for example, the 2-component glue, and was helping a little bit. But I think if you're there, it's quite good if you don't rely on people around you too much, because first, the knowledge about cars isn't the same. Like, they're quite good at fixing stuff out of nothing, but I mean, it's not what we're used to from the US or from Europe, real professional mechanics. And normally not even one of those less professional mechanics is around. I mean, you have to think, on the Pamir Highway, you drive an entire day and you encounter maybe 3 or 4 cars. So it's not a lot of traffic. So what are the odds that you meet somebody who can actually help you? That's the part towards Kyrgyzstan. Earlier, there are trucks going towards China. There's a bit more traffic, but in the end, also where this breakdown happened, it's not exactly busy. So better be prepared, better be able to at least kind of fix your car on your own, have some tools with you, because if you rely on others, it'll be difficult. You'll be waiting for days probably for somebody to pass by who might have some skills to help you.
Talk to me about your living arrangements a little bit. Shelter, food, taking care of yourself. I mean, obviously, we're not staying at the Hilton on the Pamir Highway. So how did you take care of yourself?
Yeah, I know Hilton. I think I'm kind of lucky that I used to cycle a lot, so I can, range myself without too many things, and I'm quite good at packing light, and that also motivated me now to actually keep my rear bench. You can see it a bit in the background, maybe, pretty clean. I don't have any stuff lying around there. I'm living out of my boot. And my boot is organized in boxes because, a boot can get very messy if you just throw things inside. So I have 3 boxes, a big box, which is for the car. It holds a big toolbox, extra jerry can, some small spare parts, some ropes, some cables, all these things that you might need. Then there are 2 other boxes. One of the boxes is my kitchen. So I have a small petrol-powered stove, which is super convenient because it runs on the same fuel as the car. I don't have to find, different gas standards. They're changing in every country, and at some point then now there's nothing. So petrol is really convenient. I just pump it and pressurize it like that. So it's really good. Some food, and then there's another box with like technical equipment, laptop, drone, like all these things. And some bags with some clothes laying on top. So it's quite simple. And then you just saw it, like the rooftop tent on the roof is actually quite a game changer because it has a lot of space. It's comfortable. It has a mattress inside. You can sit up in it. It's quite a big room, actually. Quite a different feeling than sleeping in a regular tent. And it also feels safer because you're not lying on the ground, but you're actually on top of the car. So I always felt very safe and comfortable sleeping up there. It's something I can definitely recommend Especially if you not necessarily buy a hard case tent, but a soft case tent. They're quite light and easy to use. It is a game changer on such a road trip, not to sleep on the ground somewhere.
What was the favorite spot that you camped out? Is there a memorable spot that was just perfect?
That's hard to answer because there are different categories of perfect spots. I mean, right now in Portugal, and at these amazing spots at the seaside, including perfect sunsets. That's of course hard to beat if you're somewhere, no other car, no other person around, just at the sea, cooking your food. The sun is setting in the background. You fall asleep with the sound of the waves. I mean, that's absolutely beautiful. But I think one of the most memorable spots was again in Tajikistan. We're talking a lot about Tajikistan because it's crazy up there. I challenged myself, and I think you showed the photo just a moment ago, to have a camp right next to the highest pass on the entire route, next to the Akbartal Pass, which is over 4,600 meters high. That's also where this photo that you're just showing was made. So we slept over 4,600 meters. My brother was also there in an extra tent. And some French guy on a foldable bike. So it was kind of interesting to meet all these people up there at the end of the world. It was pretty cold, about -2 degrees at night, and I think it might have been also one of the warmest nights in the entire season because it was the end of June. So that was quite memorable. I mean, just this altitude and the night skies. I mean, the Milky Way is so close and reachable, almost utter silence. Like the silence up there is deafening. You don't hear anything. It is quite a special experience.
Is there not a lot of living things either? It just seems like a barren waste. It looks like another planet. It's just like stone and sky. It's stone and sky. It seems like all it is.
Yeah, I mean, in the Soviet time, the Soviet Union was putting some focus on moving people there because they wanted to populate the area a little bit. So basically, investments were made. There's some small settlements that since then degraded quite a lot. Like the infrastructure that used to be there isn't there anymore. You can still see the Soviet bus stops, but they haven't seen a bus for many, many years, for example. You see power lines without cables. Do
you know why they were trying to populate this area? Do you know I don't know if you know the history of it or not. I don't. Of like, why are they trying to get people to go live in these places where there's no resources? Like, what is the point of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think one was strategic. I think Mugrab used to be a military point in Soviet times, not so far from the Chinese border. I'm not sure about resources, but I guess there might have been something, but I'm also not quite aware of that. I guess there might also be some reasons for like logistics. I mean, it's maybe strategic, just in terms of travel routes or, I mean, it's a Pamir Highway after all, those Silk Road. And right now the Chinese are building a new Silk Road somewhere there. So that might have been also motivation back then. But yeah, it's very scarce. I mean, almost nothing grows there. People heat their ovens with yak shit, like the shit from yaks, because there are no trees you can, put into the oven. Yes. There are also some coals, but people have to buy that. So yeah, it basically shows how little stuff grows up there. I mean, you also don't see goats, cows, or sheep. Huh? It's just too cold, too rough climate for anything to survive, basically.
What can you say about the people that live there in these places?
I'm always impressed how welcoming and friendly they are. It's really beautiful to see. Very, very friendly and open towards guests. I mean, it's also a Muslim part of the world, which was socialized in the Soviet times. So basically, the Muslim background, I think, facilitates this very warm welcome towards foreigners. It's part of the culture there. At the same time, because it was part of the Soviet Union in Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzstan, culturally we are not that far away, and that's the difference to Afghanistan. Afghanistan is also one of those Stan countries, but was never Soviet. So they're also, in terms of their mentality and their cultural background, very different, maybe a bit harder for us to access. But the other Stan countries used to be Soviet. They speak quite okay Russian. I speak a bit Russian, so it makes it easier to communicate. And we share some history. I mean, they will know like probably some of the same authors of classical literature as we do, for example. So it gives a bit of common ground. But you do notice that they live a very poor and very simple life. Especially Tajikistan, it's a country that didn't really develop a lot since the fall of the Soviet Union. Very, very poor. Kyrgyzstan, for example, is doing pretty well in comparison. So you see very big differences between the countries in this region.
Did the people seem to care that they were poor? Did they know any better, or are they so far removed from like Western culture that they don't even realize it?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the times of internet, and even the Pamir region by now has internet here and there, I think they do understand that it could be different. I think they're also know how it was in the Soviet times when there was actually something that the government was providing for them, for example, buses. And now they're much more disconnected from the rest of the world. Especially in the east of Tajikistan, it's kind of interesting because the people living there are not Tajik but Kyrgyz. They speak the Kyrgyz language, they feel Kyrgyz, they have Kyrgyz names. But the border to Kyrgyzstan was actually closed for the people living there for many, many years. So they had to orientate themselves towards Tajikistan, which was, well, the capital is a few days, a week right away. It's far. They don't speak the same language. So they're very, very closed off from the rest of the world up there in the mountains. Yeah.
Would you have gone into Afghanistan? I know you got really close, but one of my questions was, did you ever feel unsafe or feel danger being that close to Afghanistan? As like someone from the United States that's so far removed from that region, my natural instinct is to be like, don't go there. The Taliban, they'll take you and put you in a hole somewhere. That's the instinct. Is just that's what you get from the media, is you get constant fear mongering. Did it ever feel that way, or did you ever feel anything like that?
That's a very good question. And no, I absolutely did not. I actually also considered to go there, but Afghanistan, the roads are completely disastrously bad and it was extremely hot, so I didn't. But I didn't go there because of infrastructure and because of climate, not so much because of the situation. Because I also met actually many people that just came from Afghanistan, especially people on motorbikes from Europe. And right now, I mean, it sounds strange, but it's actually not too hard to travel for Afghanistan because the Taliban is basically looking out for the tourists because they don't want any bad headlines about their country. So it can happen that if you check into a hotel, that some Taliban guy will be also checking into the hotel just to have a bit an eye on you. On one hand, to protect you, maybe. On the other hand, maybe also to see what the foreigner is doing there.
What's this guy up to? What's he doing?
Exactly. But everybody.
So I look at a lot of. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I mean, everybody I talked to was there said that they actually felt very safe. I think the only thing is a bit in Afghanistan right now, people are extremely poor. And if people are extremely poor and extremely hungry, well, who blames them if they do not nice things at some point just to survive or make their family survive? So it's something you have to keep a bit in mind. But apart of that, from what I heard, I mean, strange times, but definitely overlandable.
So, when I look at some of these places, they look extremely lonely, right? Yeah. They look extremely lonely and desolate. How did you, and we're driving 10 hours a day. You're crawling along, you're going slow. There's no one around. How did you deal with the inevitable loneliness and boredom? Because it's inevitable. You're going to be bored and you're going to be lonely.
Well, actually, I was never bored on the entire trip, I dare say. Maybe at the border. At some point, if you sit for 8 hours at the border waiting for some officers. But, that's a nice thing about overlanding. You cross so many countries. If it gets boring, you just sit in the car and drive, and then something will be different. And the landscape changes, the people change. So it's a never-ending, basically flow of different impressions, which, is pretty amazing. Of course, sometimes...
That's a unique sentiment, though. That's a unique sentiment. I got in. So I don't know if you've traveled in the United States much. I assume you might have. And if you've ever been in the state of Nebraska, it is well known to be very flat, very boring, and there's really not much to look at. But I would argue that there's a case to be made for some of those places allowing you to think a little bit. I think it's a luxury to be able to be in places where you can think and observe and look and see the world around you as it evolves and changes. Is that kind of what you're talking about? Is it just being able to look and see and experience?
Exactly. I mean, if you mention Nebraska, I guess Kazakhstan might be a bit comparable in terms of the emptiness and monotonicity of the landscape. I mean, it's this big steppe. There's not a lot long straight roads, but if you drive a car, it's also kind of nice that you're occupied with something, but your mind, you can think thoughts. Like normally, if in everyday life, you'll always do something. You'll always find something to do. You'll be on your phone. You'll meet people. You'll go working. But while driving, you're kind of stuck in the car, but you also have still some freedom to go to follow up on your thoughts. So I think it's actually kind of a nice experience to have nothing to do in between, and driving is one good opportunity to do that. And of course, you can turn on a podcast at some point or so if you need a bit of other things happening around while crossing Kazakhstan. But I think it's a pretty nice way to also get in touch with yourself, reflect over yourself, your life, everything happening around you. I stay with my point. I never get bored.
That's a very unique perspective, man. And I think it's something that most people can't tolerate. They go through their day, they wake up in the morning, they're on their phone, then they're working, and then they're watching TV at night, and then they're on their phone again, and then they go to bed. There's no time in the day of which they are able to just do nothing.
Yeah,
There's
I
nothing.
think
Just be with yourself and be in your own thoughts.
absolutely. I think it's a real problem in our society. But also, if you think about traveling, many people that drive somewhere in order to arrive somewhere. So the path from the place where you start and your destination is only like means of transport. And I think in my case, it was much more, the path between the place where I start and my destination, that's like the trip, and that's what the trip is about. So I think we should also try to learn to appreciate the journey more, not only the destination.
Der Vegas das Ziel, right?
Huh?
Der Vegas das Ziel?
Exactly, der Weg ist das Ziel. Wow, different language. Exactly, that's the thing. Der Weg ist das Ziel. In English, the path is the goal.
Yeah. What's your favorite memory, or if you had to take one thing away to retell about your journey, what's your favorite story to tell when you think back on it?
That's again a hard question, because there are again different categories. There'll be a favorite story about nature. There'll be a favorite story about driving. There'll be a favorite story about interactions with people.
Well, let's do a couple of those, and let's do people. Like, tell me about your favorite interactions with people.
Okay, so I think actually one of my favorite ones was in Russia in the Altai Mountains. And you have to know the Altai Mountains, it's the region where Russia meets with Mongolia and Kazakhstan. So it's pretty far east. Quite remote region, beautiful mountains, and also quite a popular tourist destination for Russians. They love their nature and their mountains. So I drove to some small riverbed and parked my car next to the river to camp there. And just about 5 minutes after my second car arrived, which I didn't quite expect because it was a secluded spot at the river, with a Russian family from Krasnoyarsk, which is a bit further north, but also quite far east. And they were just, I don't know, the kid I think was about 11 years old, and mother and father, just a very joyful little bunch of guys that spoke absolutely no German, English or whatever, just Russian, of course. And I speak not really great Russian, but I ended up camping with them for I think 2.5 days, and it was such a warm, welcoming, like friendly atmosphere with them, especially if you think all this shit that's happening in the world currently. It was just, a parallel reality. You come there, it's a warm, friendly welcome. Nobody cares about politics. And you just, agree on the fact, hey, we are people and politics are politics, and we just have a great time. And I felt very, very warmly welcomed there, which is nice, especially nowadays. I mean, also I was a bit, I had respect about visiting Russia right now. And I also want to make it very clear that I say some positive things about Russia. It's not political. It's only like some, experiences I had along the way with certain people. It doesn't say that I think it's okay what's going on. Huh?
Yeah.
But then, this big, difference between expectation and reality inside this country when you just meet normal people. I mean, the guy was just talking about he was professional truck driver, driving Kamaz through the Siberian forest, pulling logs out of the wood. So just a super simple guy who has probably absolutely zero contact to any other European. And changing topic a bit here, I got quite a lot of hate and criticism on social media for actually visiting Russia, saying you cannot go there. It's like supporting the regime. And I think, no, it's the opposite. It's about, talking to people and maybe finding similarities instead of only focusing on differences, which will probably make everything only worse. I think that worked pretty well. I think if we focus on stuff that we have in common, and maybe also show that the propaganda is not necessarily correct, but people also in Europe are normal people, we can, maybe get rid of some walls between our cultures and politics and governments.
Yeah, in the end, it's interesting. You hear of another group of people, and you make a stereotype or you make a judgment call about this group of people. But when you meet someone as an individual, it's interesting how much different the interaction goes than just paraphrasing an entire group.
Exactly. I mean, of course, many people believe the propaganda. I mean, they're surrounded by it. Many don't speak any other language. It's part of it. But I didn't feel that anybody had a level of hate towards me as European with my German license plates. I mean, I was pretty obviously not from Russia driving through this country. I was pretty obviously from Germany, with all the flags on the back of the car. And I mean, I drove almost 7,000 kilometers through this country at zero negative interactions or like reactions from people around me. That was quite impressive, because I think if a Russian would cross Germany right now, I'm not sure if everybody would have been so nice to him.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite memory with Theodore, the car? Do you have a story to tell about, something that happened with the car that brought you closer to that part of your family?
Well, yeah, I think crossing the Pamir Highway once again was quite a strong experience with this car, because it's just crossing a part of the world for which this car was not made for, and you somehow endure this challenge together. You notice how the engine's power is really decreasing at some point because of all the oxygen loss up
Well,
there.
it's a 2 liter too, right? It's the small displacement inline six. Did I read that? It's a 2 liter?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
then also the pre-facelift. So it's the M20 B20 engine. It's a old engine generation,
Yeah,
2 liter.
I had an E30 with that engine once. It was
Oh yeah,
it was an E30 Touring from England that had been imported here. It was slow,
nice.
man. It was slow. There's no question. I cannot imagine that car at, I think it's 14,000 or 15,000 feet. It must. Gosh, I can't imagine how absolutely slow it would be.
Yeah, it is 129 horsepower on sea level. Up there, I guess it had probably 70
When it
or
was
so. I'm
new,
not sure.
when it was
But
new, it had
yeah, but
129.
actually, believe it or not, it still reaches its official top speed. So I guess
Okay.
taking good care of the car, paid off. So I think it still has most of its horses left. But yeah, it was a challenge. It's not the most powerful engine. That's absolutely right. And I think the biggest challenge was at some point that the first gear just wasn't slow enough. So if there was a big incline, you had to go up with a bit of speed to have a certain amount of RPM to actually have some power. But then if the road is really bad, you don't want to have a lot of speed because you'll destroy the car. So that's always, a trade-off, like, okay, will I make it? Or will I make it so fast that I might break something? But I mean, to get back to your question, I mean, just getting through all these off-road stretches on the route, I think that really brought us closer together, because I mean, it started also already in Georgia, then in Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. There was a bit of off-road, Tajikistan a lot. Seeing this road, thinking like, damn, it's impossible to drive it with a car, and then you just drive, and it's like, damn, it actually works, and it feels good. It doesn't even feel so bad what I'm doing here. That I think brought us closer together. And also there, it was always, I'm not trying to shred the car over like routes where it doesn't belong. Like, the health of the car is the most important thing, because I rely on the car. Without the car, I'm stuck somewhere far, far, far away from home. So it was a challenge, but the challenge was not only to cross things, but to cross things without destroying Teodora, because it would hurt me as well, I guess.
Did
So
people give you a hard time that you were destroying the car? Like, why are you doing this? You're ruining the car. It's gonna
no,
break. Why?
actually not. Actually not. I mean, I think it's maybe also a bit because of the approach I have also on my social media, that the car is usually quite central. I portray the car as the main actor in the entire tour. So I think people do realize that I take good care of the car. I think most people were rather surprised, but I didn't get any negative
One thing I
response.
want to touch on, and this is, I think, a unique thing with. I mean, I'm sure people do this in other hobbies and other exploits as well. But you talk a lot about your relationship with the car, and that it's family, and that you take care of it, and everything like that. How do you explain that feeling and that sentiment to someone who doesn't understand what you're talking about? I do. I get it. I have cars too. I love cars, and I'm very special or I'm very close to many of them. How do you explain that to someone?
But I think step number one is that if a car is a name, it turns into a person to some extent. And you can have a relationship with a person. Having a relationship with a thing is a bit strange. But since my car is called Theodore, I rather see him as like a faithful, good friend, because, if you experience adventures with people, it brings you also closer together. And having adventures with good friends is always, a nice thing to share, memory. I think giving a car a name, having adventures together, you'll somehow connect on a different level. It sounds a bit strange, I guess, for non-car people, but I think enduring things together like bring you closer. Yeah.
How did you feel when you turned around and started to come home? When you were halfway and you knew you were on your way back, did it change your sentiment of how you were feeling about the trip? Did it, kind of change the destination, where the destination was, maybe it was getting there, and being there. And then once you're on your way home, it always, for me anyway, seems to just change the dimension a little bit. It just changes how it feels when you're finally on your way home.
Yeah, but actually I think it filled me with pride. Not so much for myself, but rather for Theodore. Because like, wow, we made it so far. And then driving home was also a piece of cake, because we drove through Russia, which is tarmac all the way. So there were not so many, obstacles along the way anymore. So I think it was a bit like a feeling of victory. to some extent to head home. And I also knew, if I come home and I want to continue, I can. So it wasn't the sad feeling of, oh no, the adventure is over. So yeah, it was a good victorious feeling.
I'm thinking for some reason, it just popped in my mind of how much of a picky eater I am. It's difficult for me to eat in new places. Did you run into issues with food or getting food, or did you just have to eat the local food? And if you're hungry, you eat it. If it doesn't matter if you like it or not, or how did that, how did you sustain, eating?
Yeah, I mean, first, I'm lucky that I'm not a picky eater. I eat absolutely everything. It backfired once a little bit in Russia and Tatarstan. It was a Muslim farmer invited us and told me, the guest, he gets the best part of the sheep and it's the brain. So I had to eat the sheep brain, which was actually better than expected. But yeah.
What does that taste like, man? What is like? Have you seen Indiana Jones, the movie?
Yeah, of course.
Where they take the little thing and they got the little monkey heads in the Temple of Doom and they open it up and it's the monkey brain and everybody's like, oh my God, that's the dessert. And they all freak out and pass out and everything like that.
Yeah. It was
man,
almost the same situation. Actually, the worst part is the consistency, I think. It's strange. It's hard to describe in words. I think you should just try.
Nope, I'm good. Thanks. Good.
I don't judge.
I'm good. But you were polite, right? You were polite and you ate it and you're in these places where these people are poor, right? So they give you what they consider the best part.
Exactly.
You feel bad not to eat it.
And it was served on a plate, but it was, half the skull. So it was the skull cut open in the middle, basically, and the brain looking out. So it was very authentic, let's put it this way. But, I mean, that was an exception because most of the time I actually cooked myself. I'm quite self-sustaining because especially if you're in remote regions of the world, like you don't know if there'll be some roadside restaurant where you want it. And also, if you camp, I normally try to find a place to camp before it gets dark. So I don't really have the opportunity to go out for dinner if there might be a place to eat, because I want to have a camp already by the time. So it's much more convenient just to cook. And my food was actually almost quite basic and quite efficient. I usually had some type of grain like quinoa or like lentils or pasta, and I would mix that with a lot of tuna and oil that has power, and it's very good to be transported in the car. Some tomato sauce. Unfortunately, not a lot of cheese because cheese is quite rare in Asia. In Russia, then again, a lot of cheese. But stuff like that, you can just cook quickly over your small stove.
There's got to be like yak cheese around, right? Like there's got to be like yak cheese and goat cheese.
Yeah, I didn't see yak cheese, but a lot of yak butter, which is surprisingly not very tasty. It tastes a bit like, I don't know, this butter is stuff from olive oil or like sunflower oil, so it's not very, very tasty. But yeah, that's, I think, well, I also had some yak meat, actually. That was pretty good. But I didn't find any yak cheese. I think cheese is not so much culture there. What they have is like, they call it cheese, but it's like small white balls. And it's a bit like chalk from the consistency. So it's almost like dried powder. And it's extremely salty. And it's some cheese-like product. Which is, I don't know. A bit...
I would have a rough time out there, man.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, have this chalk ball that kind of is like cheese, but not really. I would probably lose. I would be dead, not from exposure, but from starvation. But what was the economy like? Like, how did you pay for things? Because you went through like 13, 15 different countries, a lot of different countries. How did you deal with all the exchange and the money, and how did you pay for things?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. I mean, the good thing is, in almost all countries, my Visa card works except for Russia. Russia has, again, a small challenge here because I had to bring a lot of cash with me, which is also not the best feeling to carry a lot of cash for a month of travels. But a part of that, in the capitals, you'll always find an ATM that works. I think Uzbekistan was one of the more challenging countries because many ATMs were empty out of some reason. But if you take yourself a bit of time, you just get some cash from the ATM and you're quite fine. Then you always have some euros or some dollars that you can exchange worst case. So that's not too bad. Then talking about expenses themselves, I really enjoyed the fuel prices along the way. In Eastern Europe, it's like about €1.20 per liter, €1.30 depending on the countries. Some countries are more expensive, but you just skip them, don't get fuel there. And then starting in Turkey, Georgia, you pay about €1, so about $1 per liter, which is for Germans quite cheap because in Germany you pay about €1.60, €1.70.
Yeah.
And then Kazakhstan is great. It's 35 cents a liter. So it is.
Was it cheaper because it was 10% water? Did you run in? There had to have been instances where you're like, I cannot believe I'm putting this gas in my car. I cannot believe I'm putting this in here.
Yeah, actually, it was fine. I think Kazakh fuel is not too bad because Kazakh fuel is they produce it mostly in Kazakhstan, and the reputation is okay. Also, I think it helps to have a very old car, which is 36 years old, which has very simple engine technology, not too many sensors that will go crazy if the fuel doesn't have the best quality. I think the more challenging fuel quality was in Tajikistan and Uzbekistan because they rely mostly on fuel from Turkmenistan, which doesn't have such a good reputation. But the water and the fuel is rather than diesel cars. So most diesel cars I met had big problems, but my car doesn't run on diesel, so
Really?
I was quite fine.
I would think that diesel would be the way to go. That would be my instinct, is that diesel would be what you'd want to do, because you could just be like, oh, let me put this yak butter in my engine and it's probably going to run,
No, yeah, it's true. Yeah, the thing is, the diesel cars are not very popular there. Like, I think diesel almost only gets used by trucks, which I guess have quite robust engines. Yeah, so I met actually many overlanders, especially with modern diesel cars, that had massive problems. Like, one example, some guys I met in Kazakhstan, they had a MAN, but crafter size, so basically a van from MAN. And on the Pamir Highway, they got some error code, and the car went into emergency mode, only went 10 kilometers per hour on 4,000 meters. So they crossed the entire Pamir Highway with 10 kilometers per hour, uphill a bit slower.
You might as well walk.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it must be so depressing, but that's only the beginning, because entire Kyrgyzstan, that's the next country, doesn't have a dealership that can delete this mistake. So they still crossed 1,000 kilometers of Kyrgyzstan with 10 kilometers per hour.
So did they look at your car and go, do you want to trade?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. And I mean, that car was one of the smaller ones. It's not a huge thing, but it was still, I guess, $150,000 or so. Huh? So they drove over 1,000 kilometers with 10 kilometers per hour just to get into Kazakhstan, where the workshop told them, yeah, we cannot help you, go somewhere else. And then they found some guys that bought some strange device from Taiwan with a similar car, and they could just delete the error, and the car just drove. Nothing was broken. It was only some error in the system because, high altitude, bad fuel, the emission will be strange. Yeah. The sensor will say something is wrong with the car.
All the trouble that carburetors give me, I'm always like, hey, you know what? This is kind of funny because I have an old Porsche and it broke down on one of the rallies that we just did. And I probably could have fixed it had I had the time to sit and mess with it. But I love the simplicity of that stuff.
Yeah.
It's all like, it's right there. It's all right there. It's apparent. It's mechanical. You can fix it. You've got a screwdriver. You can usually figure it out. Where the only issue then arises is with the ignition system. The ignition system can cause problems, but the fuel system, you're probably going to be fine. You just need to bring a bunch of fuel filters with you for that. Whatever.
I did that. Absolutely. You need that. Yeah. And it's also accessible. It's so easy to fix. Like, if you see a new car, you open the hood and it's like, you don't even see where the parts are. You have to take everything apart just to access the most simple thing. And with the old stuff, it makes
anything other than the radiator go bad? Anything else? Anything else break?
I think the only thing worth mentioning was a wheel bearing in the back. It broke in Russia. And when driving slow, I noticed there's some not very healthy sound. Like, I don't know, popcorn or so, like some crispy sounds in the back, which didn't sound very healthy. So I jacked up the car on the side where the sounds came up, and I could just wiggle the wheel for an inch or so. So it was a lot of movement. Like right and left, so it wasn't good. But it was still turning. And on the back, the wheel bearing is not very accessible because a powertrain goes through and it's pressed actually into the axle. So you cannot change it on the roadside. It's actually, you need some heavy machinery to get it out. It's pressed into it. So I started to go about 100 kilometers to Yekaterinburg, which was a next bigger city or town, to get it fixed there. And I think actually I drove really like a few hundred kilometers like that without noticing before, because when I went a bit faster, like my consumption was a bit higher because I guess there was a bit more wear. But part of that, like, I only noticed it when going slow. So I guess I drove at least 300 kilometers with a completely broken wheel bearing. But that was fixed.
How did you fix it? Like, what was the solution? You find a shop that how did you get a bearing?
Yeah, I have to admit, I have a cheat code, which is my Instagram reach. It's very easy to find help anywhere, especially like in Russia. There's a quite big community. So basically, a good friend of mine that I know from many years ago in St. Petersburg, he found a shop that had the part, and I just had to pick it up basically there. And some guy from the local community organized me a workshop that had actually time, which wasn't that easy because Ekaterinburg apparently is a city in Russia with not enough workshops, and most of them are booked out for weeks, and I needed one the next day. So that worked quite fine. It was also very cheap. They changed both sides in the back for like $80, which was 6 hours of work. So I'm not complaining. Wow. Yeah, really good. And I mean, again, wheel bearing was probably 300,000 kilometers old, like the car, the one that broke. So it worked for a long time, right? So it's pretty nice. And since we talk about wheel bearings, in Kazakhstan, my car was checked up, and one wheel bearing in the front, like, it was still fine, I think, but it wasn't optimal. So they decided they'll just change it for free. So I said, okay, go ahead, guys. And in the front, it's quite easy. So they put a Chinese wheel bearing into it. And in St. Petersburg, so about 9,000 kilometers later, this one was broken already. It was an absolutely new wheel bearing from China that just held for 9,000 kilometers. That was on the right side. And on the left side, I still have my 320,000 kilometer original BMW wheel bearing. Just
German wheel bearing, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I do notice, like, in these regions, you don't get German parts, but Chinese ones. And they can be good, but in many cases, they are not. So, yeah, it's a challenge sometimes. Yeah.
What was kind of like the downside of the trip? What was the part that was just not good? There had to have been some parts that gave you contrast for those. You want the good experiences too, like camping with that couple and stuff like that, and finally getting the highway. But there had to have been like something that was just a major bummer too. Is anything the worst?
Yeah, I mean, of course. I think one thing that separated me a bit from other travelers is some people leave on a big trip because they hate their home, they hate everybody, I don't know, in their home country. They don't have a nice home, let's put it this way. And I like my home. So, of course, if you go on a big journey like this, it's also sacrifice to some extent. You cannot have everything at once in life. But I think the other bummers were rather details, like not finding a good place to camp and just, venturing around in the dark from one place to the other. Nothing is suitable. Then there are many mosquitoes, maybe. Like these small details, or like long border crossings, 40 degrees. You sit in the car, no AC for hours, and the car is 50 degrees, just waiting to cross the border. Like stuff like that. When it's the end of the border crossing, your head is turning and think like, damn, I got a heat stroke. That's part of it sometimes. It's of course not always easy along the way. It's part of it. Yeah.
Where the border crossings are, when I talk to people that do these kind of things, it seems like it's always kind of the major bummer. Did you have to extort anyone, or did you get extorted, or did you have to pay anyone off, or there were any fun border crossing stories, or was it just all around not fun?
Well, actually, extortion was never really an issue in my case. It happens. I heard it from other people, especially in Kazakhstan and stuff like that. But again, I think my car is a great diplomat, because these old BMWs, they see the car, they're happy, because it's also the generation of cars who were new when the Soviet Union fell apart. So back in the early 90s, like the guys that made some money, they tried to get exactly this car. So it's almost a bit part of like the national heritage to some extent. And I think that saved me a lot of trouble. Like people just in a regular camper, they got stopped by the police and got harassed sometimes. I almost never get stopped, and if I did, it took like 3 minutes. I got a compliment for it.
They just assume you don't have any money, man.
Maybe. No, actually, I think, no. Every European there, they think that he has money. Like it's for them,
Well, relatively speaking, you're right. You're right, relatively speaking. So,
I think it wasn't so much about money. It was rather like I got many sympathy points. So they'd rather stop me and invite me over for tea than ask for bribes.
Right.
So, yeah. But if you talk about the border crossing themselves, I mean, within Europe, it's of course super relaxed. I mean, okay, for example, Serbia is not part of Schengen region, so there's a border crossing. They will have a look at everything, but it's no big deal. Then when entering Turkey, they'll already start opening a bit more boxes. You have to unload some stuff. They will look maybe for legally imported alcohol or something like that. Georgia is quite relaxed. And then the actually only borders that really take a lot of time is entering Russia. One reason is, of course, that they check everything. I was smuggling a drone, which was a bit risky maybe, but it worked fine. And then you also have to import the car temporarily, which means that you have to fill out many documents. And they're kind of funny because these documents have open questions, but they only accept one specific answer. And if you write it wrong, you cannot cross it out and rewrite it, but you have to fill out the document again and wait again for an hour on the line to actually hand it in. So it's quite time consuming. I think when I entered from Georgia to Russia, it took about 6 hours, and that was pretty good. Like most other people I talked to, they took like 8 up to 10 hours at this border. So you have to have some time for that. And then while exiting Russia towards Kazakhstan, so the next border, was also interesting because I heard some not so nice stories about video interviews where you get interviewed by some agent about politics. It gets filmed, and you have to, well, basically make sure not to make them too angry. And I think it's kind of scary that they ask these questions while exiting the country. I mean, if they do that while entering, like, okay, worst case, they say you cannot come in, but what happens if they don't like your answers when exiting?
You can't leave.
Yeah, I don't know. You go to the gulag or so. I have no clue. Okay, I didn't hear that happening as well, but I think it's just, a bit. At least we can still go there. Let's put it this way. And I guess while exiting Russia, I was waiting for this interviewer who didn't show up. So I was just standing there for 3 hours, surrounded by mosquitoes, without a passport because I just kept it. And nothing was happening. I was done with the toll, with everything, with the border guards and whatever. I was just waiting to get my passport back. Just standing there for 3 hours, together with some other Europeans that stood there even longer than me. And then you feel kind of small, like somehow, you don't have your passport, you stand in no man's land between Russia and Kazakhstan, you're like, okay. But everybody was friendly. I mean, they made some jokes like saying, yeah, you're waiting here now because of your sanctions, but in a friendly manner, let's put it this way. But you don't have so much power in this moment.
So, did you bring any keepsakes home? Did you bring any objects? Obviously, your car is very important to you, so you understand the value of objects as representation of love and joy that we do with things. I love things. I love objects. Behind me here that you can't see, there's all kinds of little objects and keepsakes and things that I've brought home from trips and stuff. Did you keep anything? Is there any object that you have that you took home?
Not really, actually. I mean, yeah. The beauty of the packing of my car is I have everything I need, but also I don't have anything that I don't need. So basically, since I packed and organized it quite well upon departure, I didn't really have to buy anything along the way.
No, like little widgets or like little antiques or anything from local stores or anything. Nothing. No tools. Like you would have to. There's no way you could get me to come home from this trip without bringing a bunch of weird stuff home.
I think I have to get inspired by you there. It's actually kind of a nice idea. No, I mean, I bought a hat, and that's actually kind of funny because I bought this hat in an Afghan market in Tajikistan. There are some markets where once a week the Afghan people can go without a visa and sell their stuff. So it's actually a hat I bought from an Afghan guy. And the Afghan guys, they look like Afghan guys, as you would imagine them. Like, the stereotype is completely right. They've got these strange vests, the big beards, these robes, like you can see it's from Afghanistan. But that's, again, something that you kind of need. If you get a sunburn on your neck, you want to have a big hat. I didn't have one, so I bought it there. Then I got a few small presents, like a postcard where somebody painted my car. So that's lying at the back of the car. And I don't know if I can reach it. Give me a sec. I'll show it to you. Like, there's some small souvenirs I have here, since you asked so detailed. So, for example, that's kind of cute, isn't it? From Riga.
Yeah,
one of my followers, I organized a small car meet and made this hand-painted small postcard.
I love it.
Well, then the guys in St. Petersburg were just incredible and created a customized T-shirt with my car in it. So it's rather random stuff like that people give me along the way. I'm like, okay, I cannot say no to that. In Portugal, I was invited to the Le Mans race, so that's still my entry ticket. That was also kind of cool. So keep stuff like that. But I try not buying things because, once you start doing that, it's open end, where you stop. So,
yeah.
And also, honestly...
I know. I know. I have a problem.
But yeah, also in most of these countries, there's not so much on the way you can pick up. I mean, maybe a stone that looks nice, but there's just nothing. I mean, also antiques in Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, if you go to the mountains, there's not a lot.
Everything's this way, I suppose. Everything is used or disposed of or burned, I imagine. I don't know.
There's just not much. I mean, the few things that there are being used, I mean, nothing lies around.
That's a very Western concept of being able to enjoy the antiques of nice things that other people at some time have discarded.
Yeah,
being able to use that that's a true luxury. I've never even really thought of that. So where do you want to go next? What's where to, man? What do you want to see?
Yeah, I mean, I came back to Germany. I was like, actually, the trip should not stop here. I want to go on. And then it was actually a pretty random decision, but I thought like, okay, I mean, there's this Paris-Dakar rally, which is, kind of legendary. So I decided Dakar and Senegal is just a good destination by default. And I've never been to Africa with a car. So I decided, okay, I'll still, enjoy a bit of Western Europe after all these a bit more challenging countries. But actually, end of the week, I will cross over to Morocco with the ship and
Okay.
then work myself
It
up to.
begins already. You haven't stopped. The journey is still going. You said you were at the end, but it's honestly
No, no,
just still
no, it's
onward.
not. It's not. It's not. We have to do a second episode at some point. It's
Okay.
actually only the beginning of the second big thing coming up because end of the week I cross to Morocco, and then I will head along the western African coast through Mauritania, which will be a challenge. I think it'll be by far the most dangerous country on my entire route. Into
Yeah.
Senegal
Well,
again, quite
for
fun.
a lot of reasons. I mean, there's nothing there, man. Nothing. You thought there was
Exactly.
nothing in Tajikistan. There is no. That is the
Yeah, yeah.
definition of nowhere.
It's a whole different type of desert. I mean, I'll be basically crossing the Sahara, which I think is also,
Yeah.
it's a nice idea. I like, a trip is kind of cool if it's a nice idea behind it. It's not like I'll drive to Rome. Okay, you drive to Rome, you see Rome, but no, you cross the Pamir Mountains, you cross the Sahara, you cross Siberia. I mean, that's a story to tell. That's a real experience because, again, der Weg ist das Ziel. It's about the path, not the destination. So I think that's why Dakar is quite a nice goal because
When
you
I
have to.
see that stuff, when I see like the Sahara or I see like these mountains and stuff like that, I think of the time. I think about time a lot. Anybody that listens to the podcast know I talk about time all the time. I see those mountains and I see those have been here for millions of years, right? And they've been moving slowly in one direction or another. And all this sand that's in the Sahara Desert used to be a stone. And I think of just this little BMW going zoom, just like for this little micro moment, just the smallest moment ever, that it appears and disappears, like just this enormous time lapse of time that it was just there for this blip.
Absolutely. And you really feel the time if you're on these big, open, endless, unforgiving places, huh? Like the roof of the world in Tajikistan or the Sahara. Yeah, like that gives you perspective. Huh? You feel very small and not very important in the big world.
Yeah, these big monolithic things. Humans build all these big monoliths, and we build these, you know, monuments to ourselves, right? They're
Yeah.
monuments to our own humanity, and they're enormous and megalomaniacal and big, and they're just nothing compared to these places that you've seen and been.
Yeah, I mean, nature builds the best monuments, and that's so nice. I mean, that's why also driving through endless nature makes it so interesting and worthwhile. Now let's turn on the light. Give me a sec. You have to cut this, I guess. I'm sorry, but
That's all good.
up here in Portugal, the sun goes down very suddenly and very quickly. So, but I'm prepared, so it should be fine. Turn this on.
I've only really got one more question for you. At any rate, if someone's listening to this and they're thinking about doing their own trip, what would you tell to inspire them? What words could you give them to inspire them to take their own journey?
Yeah, so I think the main message here is, a journey should be about freedom. So, I mean, on the technical perspective, don't overdo it. I mean, that's basically also, again, the beginning of the podcast here. Don't buy a UFO for, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars that weighs 10 tons. Keep it simple because if you have less, it's less potential problems, right? And it'll be more fun because you're also less worried along the way. And the second thing is don't wait for it because it is never the right time to do such a trip. I mean, such a trip, you're gone for 4 months, 6 months. It is a long time. It's not easy. Like there'll be never the time where you say, no, it's the day I have to do it. So just do it because the time won't come knocking at your door saying like, hey, Kris, it's time for you to go on a big trip now. Huh? You just have to do it at some point. So, and also it's not so hard. Like I'm not a special guy. I just drive an old car. I'm enjoying my life. Everybody can do it. Like if you have some time, of course. So yeah, don't have too much respect for it. Go for it. Enjoy your time out there. Don't overdo it with the equipment. And don't wait for it.
All right, man. It's been my pleasure having you on the podcast to hear your stories. It's been good. I'll be following along as you drive across Mauritania, and I imagine when you get to South Africa, you will be shipping your car to Ushuaia and coming up South America across the Darien Gap, across Mexico, and when you come to the United States, I'll come see you. How's that sound?
That sounds great. Thank you so much for your time,
Okay.
Kris. Thanks for the
All
invitation.
right, man. Take care.
Take good care. Bye-bye.